Bueno, clase, hoy vamos a hablar sobre su salud, comida, dieta y partes del cuerpo. Hello, class. Today we're going to talk about some general health items, including food, diets, and parts of the body. Let's start with food. So here is a food chart. I want you also to refer to pages 122 and 123 in your textbooks. On 122 and 123, you have a lot of vocab about lots of different kinds of food that would be helpful for you to know. So here, as you can see in this triangle, you have things at the bottom of the triangle that you should probably be eating daily. And towards the top, it's things that you probably shouldn't eat as often. So I'll let you take a look at this. All right. Partes del cuerpo, the parts of the human body. Here we have some basic parts of the body. In your textbook, they're going to get into a lot more detail, and there's, again, a ton of vocab words for you to go over and learn. But here, I like this picture because it has a lot of the basics so that you don't get lost in the hundreds and hundreds of words that you could possibly learn. These basics I really want you to focus on. So let's go over them. Cabeza means head, pelo, hair, brazo, arm, pecho, chest, cadera, hips, mano, hand, pierna, leg, pie, foot, tobillo, ankle. Ojos, eyes, nariz, nose, oreja, ear, boca, mouth, cuello, neck, hombro, shoulder, codo, elbow, muñeca, wrist, dedo, finger, pierna, leg, rodilla, knee, dedo, your toe. Another way to say toe is dedo del pie, literally a finger of your foot. Here are some internal parts of your body. You can take a look at that chart. We're not going to get into too much detail, but again, if you want to look at your textbook on pages 131 to 133, there's a ton of vocab. So if I were you, depending on what field of medicine you're going to get in, I would try and focus on the parts of the body that you think will be the most useful to you. So for example, if you are studying to become a dental assistant, you probably don't need to know too much about the large intestine. But if you're studying to become, I don't know, an internal medicine doctor, then you definitely would want to focus on the large intestine versus, a molar. So take a look again at pages 131 to 133. Here we have just some skeletal vocab. Again, if you are going to be maybe a dentist or something like that, you probably wouldn't need to know all of these bones, but depending on what field you want to get into, I would focus on, just those parts of the body for now. All right, something else I wanted to go over. How do you say, how are you feeling or what's wrong with you? In Spanish, a really common phrase that is used is the phrase ¿qué tiene? So ¿qué tiene literally means what do you have if you're talking in the usted form, or what does he, she, or it have? ¿Qué tiene? So if someone says to you, ¿qué tiene? They're literally saying what's wrong with you. So here are a different couple answers. So if it was in the first person, and the person had the flu, you might want to say, tengo gripe. I have the flu. Tienes fiebre means you have a fever. Tiene cáncer, you can guess what that means. Tenemos diabetes, you can guess what that means. Tienen hipertensión. Pretty self-explanatory, but I want you to become familiar with that phrase, ¿Qué tiene? And if you were asking a Spanish-speaking patient, what's wrong with them or what are they feeling, what symptoms are you feeling, you should learn that phrase, ¿Qué tiene? It's very useful. So that is ¿Qué tiene? Another phrase that's very useful in Spanish is the phrase hay que. So hay que means just an idiomatic expression that you have to memorize. It means what do you have to do or what should you do. So if someone says to you, I want to give you some advice, and they say, hay que hablar con el doctor. So that means you have to talk with a doctor. But it's always going to be hay que. You don't need to conjugate that verb I. So as you can see, it's hay que followed by an infinitive. So looking at our list here, we have hablar, tomar, comer, consultar, hacer. All of those are verbs in the infinitive. So hay que tomar mucho agua is you have to drink a lot of water, or you should drink a lot of water. Hay que comer menos azúcar. You need to eat less sugar. You should eat less sugar. You have to eat less sugar. Hay que consultar con el nutricionista. You should consult with the nutritionist. You need to consult with the nutritionist. Something that you have to do. Hay que hacer mucho ejercicio. You need to do a lot of exercise. So as you can see in the medical field, this is a very useful expression because a lot of times if people come in and they're sick or they're, having some kind of ailment, you're going to tell them what to do. So these are some phrases that you're going to need to know when dealing with giving people medical advice. Another way of doing this is by using tener que. So tener que is very similar, however, you can conjugate the verb tener. So for example, tengo que caminar 30 minutos al día. I have to walk 30 minutes a day. Tienes que comer frutas y vegetales con mucha fibra. You have to eat fruits and vegetables with a lot of fiber. Tiene que, he, she, or it, has to dormir 8 horas cada noche. Sleep 8 hours every night. Tenemos que evitar el estrés. We all have to avoid stress. Tienen que trabajar menos. You all, plural, or they, have to work less. So as you can see, it's used in a very similar way, hay que and tener que. However, if you're going to use tener que, you would have to conjugate the verb tener. But again, after you say tener que in whatever form, you always follow it by an infinitive. Caminar, comer, dormir, evitar, and trabajar are all verbs in the infinitive. You do not need to conjugate that verb. Gracias, that's all for today. I know that there's a lot of vocab in the book, so I want you to spend a lot of time going over that, practicing the vocab, and trying to pick out the top words that you think will be useful in your professional life or personal life. So maybe just focus on, the top 20 words in each list and really learn those well. Gracias.